In most of the big organizations, international organizations, there are processes that can guide managers how to manage low performance. However, I think that very few organizations have formal trainings to guide new managers how to detect the early signs of low performance. That's why I thought of conducting this session to guide you step by step how to detect low performance cases and what actions you need to take. Let's start by agreeing on some important points. First, low performance is not a rare event. I think that any manager, whether a senior manager or a new or emerging manager, must encounter cases of low performance, maybe one every year or maybe even more. Two, I don't think that it is realistic to believe that there is someone or some sort of group that can be high performing all the time under all circumstances without change. I think this would be really something good, but very surprising. So it is normal that certain people and certain employees experience areas or stages where their performance is not the same as usual. The third point is that I can claim that many managers tend to ignore low performance, especially if this low performance is demonstrated in simple signs or simple events or interactions. But it's a fact that low performance is a bad consequence. However, ignoring low performance can have even more serious consequences than the low performance itself. In other words, low performance is bad, but if you ignore it, it can be very bad. So why some of us or some managers may tend to ignore low performance? I can recall some reasons. First, maybe we don't realize that these are signs of low performance, and we may interpret these signs as normal ups and downs, and this will be corrected by time. Or some managers are hesitant to confront colleagues or their team members. So maybe we are scared to confront or to face other colleagues or other employees in our team. Three, we may misunderstand these signs as not important or trivial issues. So how can we avoid these situations? How can we avoid situations where we see signs of low performance, but we tend to ignore them? That's another big question. We need to understand our roles and responsibilities as managers. So we are responsible and accountable for the performance of the team, including the performance of every individual in this team. And in addition, we are responsible for the behavioral changes and attitudes of the team members as well. In other words, the managers are having dual responsibilities: the performance metrics and the performance management, in addition to the behaviors and attitudes. In this video, when we mention low performance, we mean both performance management and behavioral changes or behavioral attitudes. There is no third option. When you have a low performance or a behavioral and attitude issue, the only options available for you are either to address the issue proactively or to bear the consequences.
Ignoring low performance may have more and worse consequences than are either to address the issue proactively or to bear the consequences. Ignoring low performance may have more and worse consequences than low performance itself. So, once again, you can either proactively address the issue through various means like coaching or reassignment or even escalation of the issue if it is repeated, or you can bear the consequences, which could range from missed deadlines to disciplinary actions against the team. In essence, ignoring the issue is not an option. It's a choice with its own set of consequences.
So, what can we do as new managers not to miss any sign of low performance as early as possible so we can interfere and probably prevent a bigger issue? From my experience, there are 5 recommendations. If we follow, we will always be able to detect early signs of low performance. First is monitor the key performance indicators or the metrics. As managers with our team, we set these metrics in the beginning of the year, but they are set in the beginning of the year for a reason. They are not set in the beginning of the year to be ignored and only remembered during the performance appraisal or at the end of the year. They are there in order for you as a manager to monitor them regularly and to have some interim reviews for the progression and the achievement of these metrics. So metrics are ups and downs. So having a low performance in one metric doesn't necessarily indicate low performance. But if you observe patterns of low performance or low achievement of these metrics, this may be an important sign that at least require a discussion with the colleague. So when you monitor metrics, look at patterns or repeated patterns in order to be able to make an informed judgment. The second recommendation is to observe also the behavioral changes and behavioral patterns. So a colleague in your team who is always objecting, who is always unhappy, is an important sign and can be an early sign for an underlying bigger problem. So having this attitude or this behavior, continuously unhappy, continuously objecting, may indicate that there is a bigger problem underlying just that the colleague is objecting. So it needs, again, deeper digging and probably a discussion with the colleague. So always observe patterns of behaviors, changing attitudes. Another important strategy in order for you to be able to detect low performance early is to develop systematic feedback loops. Feedback loops, that means discussing with your colleagues, peers, other departments, other stakeholders, external and internal stakeholders, in order to get an informed general idea about your team members and how they perform and how they are perceived by other important stakeholders. So continuous or systematic feedback loops should be in place and should be an integral part of your performance management strategies as a manager. Then we have another important strategy, which is to provide support. And this strategy is another integral part of your role as a manager. So when you have to delegate and provide your team with their autonomy in order to make decisions and take responsibilities, extended responsibilities sometimes, you also need to continue providing support. The next recommendation, always recommend work-life balance and be a role model when it comes to work-life balance. So this is very beneficial in order to establish a sense of trust across the team. And by itself, this recommendation or this type of endorsements that you can give as a manager will enhance the team dynamics. The most common mistake that new managers encounter is ignoring signs of low performance. Maybe because they are new managers, maybe because they are reluctant to have a difficult discussion with the colleague, maybe because they don't understand and so they are unable to detect these early signs of low performance. That's why I wanted to share with you that on a personal note, I have committed this crime. I have ignored once or probably twice early signs of low performance, and I paid the price. So if you detect low performance early, take the necessary simple measures in order to handle and address these signs. I think you will be preventing what may be by far bigger than the low performance itself. So this is my ultimate recommendation. Whenever you detect early signs of low performance, you have to address the issue. When we discussed earlier that some managers may be reluctant to open this discussion or and so they can ignore they would ignore the low performance cases. One of the main reasons is that this is a difficult discussion, or that's how it is perceived by some colleagues. And so they like to delay it, or they like to have this difficult discussion only if they think that it is necessary. However, maybe the signs are very small, and you can think that these are small things, but remember that ignoring low performance or ignoring these small signs may have bad consequences worse than the low performance itself. People management is not an easy task, and it needs a specialized skill set that enables managers to understand beyond the boundaries of performance management. So, to summarize this recommendation, first, closely monitor the metrics. Don't leave the metrics of your team to be measured or assessed at the end of the year, but regularly have them checked every month, maybe. Second, whenever you observe a repeated pattern, whether it's in the performance metrics or in the attitude, I think that is the time that you have a discussion with the colleague. Third, establish systematic feedback loops in order to get a detailed idea about what's happening and how the stakeholders are perceiving the team's interactions. Four, provide support and always encourage work-life balance. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope I shared with you some valuable insights today, and hopefully to see you in the next session. Again, we will continue our discussions about performance management and managing others. Have a good day and see you soon.